Wyoming Territory, January 1883. The blizzard showed no mercy when Cowboy Elias Langford spotted the figure stumbling through knee-deep snow. What he said next, "I'll marry you just so you don't freeze," sounded like a joke until he kissed her like his life depended on it. She was Junior Hartwell, a widow with 2 children fleeing Kansas heartbreak. He was a solitary rancher who'd sworn off complications. When survival demanded marriage, neither expected their practical arrangement would ignite passion that could melt the Wyoming winter. Their marriage of convenience would bloom into something extraordinary during one brutal winter. Together, they'd build more than shelter from the storm. They'd create a love strong enough to withstand any season life could bring. Wyoming Territory in 1883 remained harsh frontier where survival trumped sentiment and winter could kill the unprepared within hours. Isolated homesteads dotted vast rangeland where neighbors lived miles apart and help might not come for weeks during severe weather. The Transcontinental Railroad brought some civilization, but most settlers remained dependent on their own resources and the kindness of strangers. Women traveling alone with children faced particular dangers, not just from weather and wildlife, but from unscrupulous men who saw vulnerability as opportunity. Marriage laws were practical rather than romantic. Couples could wed quickly before justices of peace without lengthy courtships society couldn't afford. Winter marriages often began as survival arrangements, with emotional connection developing through shared hardship and mutual dependence during months of isolation. Recently widowed after her husband's death from pneumonia in Kansas, Junia faced impossible choice: remain where memories haunted every corner or risk everything seeking fresh start in Montana Territory. Her children, 8-year-old Ryland and 6-year-old Rosie, provided motivation for courage she didn't know she possessed. Educated and capable, she'd managed household finances and taught school before marriage, giving her practical skills for frontier life. Her husband's death left her with enough money for travel, but not enough for security. She possessed quiet strength forged by loss and maternal determination to provide better future for her children despite overwhelming circumstances. 32-year-old bachelor rancher who'd spent 8 years building modest but successful cattle operation in Wyoming's harsh landscape. His isolation was deliberate. Previous romantic disappointment had convinced him that solitude was safer than risking his heart again. His line shack operation required self-sufficiency and careful planning, traits that made him excellent provider but poor at emotional expression. Despite his gruff exterior, he possessed generous spirit and protective instincts that emerged during crises. His immediate response to help Junia and her children revealed character shaped by frontier code. Decent people helped others survive, regardless of personal cost. Their marriage began as practical necessity: warmth, shelter, and protection in exchange for companionship and domestic skills. But proximity during harsh winter created unexpected intimacy while both fought emotional walls built by previous losses. External challenges included severe weather, limited resources, and isolation that could drive people apart or forge unbreakable bonds. Internal obstacles involved learning to trust again after heartbreak, blending family dynamics, and accepting that love could grow from practical foundations into something transcendent. Elias's first glimpse of Junia, determined yet vulnerable in life-threatening circumstances, triggered protective instincts he'd suppressed for years. Her fierce maternal concern for her children, despite her own dire situation, revealed strength that impressed him even as it complicated his carefully ordered solitude. His marriage proposal, blurted out during the crisis, surprised them both with its sincerity. "I'll marry you just so you don't freeze," became promise when he realized he meant every word. Junia's acceptance came from desperation, but something in his steady gaze suggested he offered more than mere survival. Their first kiss, meant to seal practical arrangement, ignited unexpected electricity. Both felt the spark, but attributed it to relief, gratitude, and shared crisis, rather than genuine attraction. The warmth spreading between them had nothing to do with the cabin's fire and everything to do with recognition of kindred spirits. During their first evening together as an engaged couple, conversation revealed shared values, devotion to family, appreciation for simple pleasures, and determination to build something lasting despite past disappointments. Neither mentioned the growing awareness that their practical marriage might become something deeper. Trust developed through daily acts of consideration during their first weeks together. Elias ensured Junia and the children had sufficient food and warmth, while she contributed domestic skills that transformed his bachelor cabin into comfortable home. Her gratitude evolved into genuine appreciation for his thoughtfulness. Junia's competent handling of household responsibilities while respecting his established routines showed understanding of partnership dynamics. She improved their living situation without criticism of his previous arrangements, demonstrating diplomatic skills that eased his defensive walls. Their conversations during long winter evenings revealed deeper compatibility. Elias listened without judgment as Junia shared memories of her late husband, while she offered gentle encouragement about his ranching dreams. Both discovered pleasure in adult conversation after years of isolation. Physical comfort developed gradually shared warmth during bitter nights, casual touches while working together, growing ease with domestic intimacy. When Junia mended his torn shirt with careful stitches, both recognized the gesture's significance beyond mere practicality. Watching Elias interact patiently with her children proved his character more effectively than words. His encouragement of Ryland's carving talent and gentle teaching of practical skills showed genuine care rather than mere tolerance. Winter isolation created pressure cooker environment where personality conflicts could explode into serious problems. Both had to adjust to shared space after years of independence, learning to negotiate decisions and respect boundaries while confined together. Junia struggled with guilt about moving forward romantically so soon after her husband's death, while Elias fought fear that she might leave when spring enabled travel. Both worried about the children's adjustment to sudden family changes and potential problems if their marriage failed. External pressures included severe weather that tested their resources and patience, plus concern about community acceptance of their hasty marriage. Legal complications arose from questions about property rights and custody arrangements if their union didn't work. Most challenging was growing attraction they both felt but couldn't acknowledge. Admitting love might jinx their practical arrangement or create expectations neither felt ready to meet. As winter progressed, Elias and Junia evolved from reluctant housemates to efficient partners managing complex household operation. She took charge of meal planning, clothing repair, and children's education while he handled livestock, repairs, and resource management. Their coordination improved weekly as they learned each other's strengths and preferences. Decision-making became collaborative, discussing supply needs, planning spring improvements, determining children's responsibilities. Elias valued Junia's practical insights, while she respected his experience with frontier challenges. Their partnership felt natural rather than forced, suggesting compatibility that transcended mere convenience. During a February blizzard that trapped them inside for 5 days, emotional barriers finally crumbled under pressure of intimate confinement. Junia confessed her fear of being burdened, while Elias admitted his terror of abandonment when spring arrived. "I don't want you to leave," he said quietly by the fire. "Not just for practical reasons. I want you to stay because you want to be here with me." Her response came through tears. "I stopped planning to leave weeks ago. This feels like home in ways Kansas never did." Their second kiss, deeper and hungrier, acknowledged feelings they'd both been fighting. Physical connection progressed through meaningful touches that reflected growing emotional intimacy. Elias's gentle care when Junia fell ill with fever contrasted with her late husband's impatient sickness responses, showing her what tender consideration felt like. Sharing the marriage bed began as practical warmth sharing, but evolved into genuine desire for closeness. Junia's gradual comfort with affectionate touches, hand-holding, casual caresses, sleeping entwined, demonstrated healing from grief while acknowledging new love. Their first night of complete physical intimacy, passionate yet tender, sealed emotional commitment with bodily union that surprised both with its intensity and rightness. Spring's approach brought practical challenges that tested their relationship foundation. Melting snow revealed damage to outbuildings and fencing that required expensive repairs. Elias's savings, stretched by supporting larger family, forced difficult decisions about improvements versus necessities. Junia's cousin wrote from Helena, offering alternative living arrangement and questioning her hasty marriage to unknown man. Social pressure mounted as community members expressed concern about her children's welfare under custody of non-relative who'd gained authority through sudden marriage. Legal complications arose when Kansas authorities inquired about her late husband's estate settlement and her children's guardian status. Territorial regulations regarding marriage validity and property rights created uncertainty about their family's legal standing. Economic stress intensified when early spring storm killed several cattle, reducing Elias's herd and threatening their financial stability. The loss forced consideration of whether Junia and the children might be better served by more secure arrangements elsewhere. Weather remained unpredictable, with late blizzards testing their resources and patience. Cabin fever symptoms, irritability, restlessness, minor conflicts over trivial matters strained their relationship during final weeks of isolation. Most challenging was approaching decision deadline. Would Junia continue to Helena as originally planned, or commit permanently to Wyoming life with all its uncertainties? Spring's arrival meant freedom to choose, making their marriage's future voluntary rather than necessary for survival. Junia's transformation from grief-stricken widow to confident partner reflected love's power to heal and inspire growth. Elias's patient support and consistent respect for her opinions rebuilt confidence that her husband's death had shattered. She began making decisions based on hope rather than fear. Her maternal skills expanded to include Elias in her protective circle, worrying about his safety during storms and taking pride in his accomplishments. Love taught her that caring for others could multiply rather than diminish her emotional capacity. Elias learned that vulnerability strengthened rather than weakened him. Opening his heart to Junia and the children made him more observant, considerate, and determined to succeed. Her presence gave his work deeper meaning. He was building future for family rather than merely surviving alone. Together, they discovered that love based on mutual respect and shared goals created partnership stronger than either individual could achieve alone. The crisis came in early April, when Territorial Marshal arrived with legal documents questioning Junia's marriage validity and custody rights. Her late husband's brother in Kansas had challenged her authority to relocate the children, claiming she'd abandoned proper guardianship by marrying unknown man without family consent. Legal proceedings required her immediate return to Kansas to resolve custody questions and estate matters that could take months to settle. The marshal's orders were clear. She and the children must depart within 1 week for court appearances that would determine their future. Elias faced impossible situation. He had no legal standing to prevent their departure or contest decisions made by Kansas courts. Their Wyoming marriage, performed hastily, without proper documentation, might not be recognized by Kansas authorities more concerned with property rights than personal choices. "I have to go," Junia said through tears, packing belongings they just finished unpacking. "If I resist, they could take the children permanently. At least this way, I have chance to fight for them." Elias understood her choice even as it devastated him. She was prioritizing her children's welfare over their personal happiness, exactly what a good mother should do. But watching her fold away the life they'd built together felt like dying by degrees. Their final night together was bittersweet mixture of desperate passion and heartbroken farewells. Neither spoke about future because future felt impossible to imagine. Back in Kansas, Junia fought custody battle while living in boarding house that reminded her daily of everything she'd lost. Her brother-in-law's legal challenge proved motivated by desire to control her late husband's property, rather than genuine concern for the children's welfare. Months of court proceedings drained her financially and emotionally while forcing her to defend every decision she'd made since her husband's death. Legal system showed little interest in her happiness or the children's preferences, focusing instead on property law and masculine authority. She wrote letters to Elias that she never sent, afraid that contact might complicate legal proceedings or give him false hope about reunion that seemed increasingly unlikely. Missing him felt like physical pain that no amount of reasonable thinking could ease. Alone again in his cabin, Elias struggled with depression that made simple tasks feel overwhelming. Reminders of Junia and the children filled every corner: her sewing basket, Ryland's wood carvings, Rosie's hair ribbon forgotten under the kitchen table. Spring work demanded attention, But his heart wasn't in planning for future that might not include the family he'd grown to love. He considered selling the ranch and starting over somewhere without memories, but couldn't abandon hope that they might return. His isolation felt worse than before because he now knew what companionship meant. Solitude that had once been refugee became prison, where every sunset reminded him of conversations they'd shared, and every dawn brought disappointment that she wasn't there to share coffee. After 6 months of legal proceedings, Junia won custody battle when court discovered her brother-in-law's fraudulent financial claims. Free to make her own choices, she faced decision between safe life in Kansas near family or uncertain future with Elias in Wyoming. Her children made the choice easy. "When are we going home to Papa Elias?" Rosie asked, using the name she'd given him during their winter together. Love demanded courage over security. Junia chose Wyoming, choosing happiness over convenience, choosing the man who'd shown her that marriage could be partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Junia's unexpected return in October, when first frost warned of approaching winter, created reunion more powerful than either had dared imagine. Elias spotted their wagon approaching at sunset and ran through the pasture like a young man, not caring who might see his desperate joy. "You came back," he whispered against her hair, holding her as if she might disappear again. "I came home," she corrected, kissing him with passion that proved their separation had strengthened rather than weakened their connection. "We all came home." The children's joyful greetings, Ryland showing carved animals he'd made in Kansas while dreaming of returning. Rosie presenting wild flowers picked along the trail proved that Wyoming had become their emotional center, regardless of legal documents or family pressure. Their reunion feast that night celebrated more than homecoming. It marked conscious choice of love over obligation, adventure over security, partnership over conventional expectations. Both had experienced separation's pain and chosen each other with full knowledge of what they risked and what they gained. "I brought the legal papers," Junia said, showing documents that proved their marriage's validity and her complete custody rights. "No one can separate us again without our consent." Elias's response came through actions rather than words. He'd spent months preparing the cabin for their return, adding rooms for the children and improvements that showed his faith in their eventual reunion. His preparation proved he'd never truly given up hope. Their second wedding night was different from their first, no longer strangers finding comfort in crisis, but lovers choosing each other after testing their commitment through absence and uncertainty. Physical reunion expressed emotional truth. They belonged together. Winter's return found them stronger and more united than ever before. Legal victory in Kansas had established their family's security, while separation had proved their love's authenticity. They faced the season not as survival necessity, but as chosen partnership, looking forward to years of shared winters. Junia's return had included financial settlement from her late husband's estate that enabled ranch improvements and expanded operations. Their combined resources and skills created foundation for prosperity that neither could have achieved alone. Love had brought practical benefits alongside emotional fulfillment. Community acceptance followed their obvious happiness and the children's contentment. Neighbors who'd questioned their hasty marriage now saw evidence of successful partnership that benefited everyone involved. Their example influenced other widows and bachelors to consider marriage for companionship rather than mere convenience. Christmas celebration in their expanded cabin included traveling preacher who performed formal wedding ceremony in front of neighbors and friends. Their vows, spoken before community witnesses, acknowledged journey from desperation to devotion while promising future built on love rather than necessity. Junia's pregnancy, announced on New Year's Day, represented ultimate symbol of their commitment and hope for future. The child would be born into family created by choice rather than chance, surrounded by parents whose love had survived testing and siblings who'd chosen this life together. Their kiss at midnight, witnessed by sleeping children and blessed by approaching new life, sealed promise made during blizzard and kept through separation. What began as practical arrangement had become love story worthy of the frontier that tested but ultimately rewarded those brave enough to risk their hearts. Their successful marriage influenced Wyoming Territory's approach to divorce and custody law, demonstrating that women's choices could benefit entire families when supported by legal system. Junia's custody victory established precedent protecting widows' rights to remarry and relocate without extended family interference. Their partnership model affected local community attitudes toward marriage, encouraging other couples to build relationships on mutual respect and shared goals rather than economic necessity alone. Several other successful matches in their district followed their example of gradual courtship developing from practical cooperation. Economic impact spread as their ranch became training ground for other settlers, learning to combine individual skills into successful family operations. Elias taught ranching techniques while Junia shared domestic skills, creating informal education network that benefited entire region. Their story influenced territorial legislation, supporting family stability and women's property rights. Legal reforms making it easier for widows to maintain custody while remarrying helped other women in similar circumstances avoid lengthy court battles. Educational development followed their success. Junia established informal school for area children, while Elias taught practical skills that prepared young men for frontier responsibilities. Their cabin became community center, where families gathered for mutual support and learning. Most importantly, their marriage proved that frontier life could nurture love and family happiness when couples approached challenges as partners. Their example encouraged other settlers to see marriage as source of strength rather than burden, contributing to territorial development through stable family structures. 20 years later, Wyoming's early statehood and progressive women's rights laws reflected attitudes influenced by successful partnerships like theirs. Their love story became local legend, demonstrating that the frontier rewarded those who combined practical wisdom with emotional courage. Within 2 years of Junia's return, 3 other widow-bachelor marriages occurred in their district. Couples inspired by their obvious happiness and encouraged by community acceptance of their unconventional beginning. Their success proved that marriages based on mutual respect could flourish even when romance developed after wedding rather than before. Their expanded cabin became informal gathering place for other families dealing with similar challenges. Junia counseled widows considering remarriage, while Elias advised bachelors about family responsibilities. Their door remained open to travelers needing shelter, continuing frontier tradition of hospitality while demonstrating stable family life. Local economic development accelerated as their successful ranch operation proved that partnerships combining different skills created prosperity. Other settlers began collaborating more effectively, influenced by their model of complementary strengths, creating mutual benefit. Their marriage contributed to changing attitudes about women's roles in territorial development. Junia's success in combining motherhood, partnership, and community leadership influenced territorial policies supporting women's education and property rights. Their family story became teaching example in schools about successful frontier settlement. Children learned that America's westward expansion succeeded because families like theirs chose cooperation over competition, building communities through mutual support rather than individual struggle. Legal precedents from Junia's custody case protected other women's rights to make independent choices about marriage and relocation. Wyoming Territory's progressive approach to women's legal status partly reflected attitudes influenced by successful partnerships like theirs. Economic policies supporting family ranching operations over large corporate holdings drew partly from examples like their successful collaborative management. Their ranch became model for sustainable frontier development that balanced individual success with community welfare. Their marriage evolved into legendary partnership, characterized by mutual growth and deepening love. Elias developed emotional expressiveness that transformed him from taciturn bachelor into devoted husband and father, while Junia rebuilt confidence and joy that widowhood had threatened to destroy permanently. They raised 5 children who grew up understanding that marriage meant partnership based on respect and shared goals. Their family demonstrated that love could flourish under any circumstances when supported by commitment and mutual consideration. In old age, they were remembered as couple whose practical beginning had grown into inspiring love story. True love can grow from practical foundations when couples choose commitment over convenience, partnership over personal comfort. The strongest marriages often begin with mutual respect and shared goals, allowing romantic love to develop naturally through daily acts of consideration and care.